Welcome to the Illuminati broadcast. I'm your demon lord, David Moore. I am the demon lord, David Moore. Okay, so I'm going to teach you about this role playing game that I created. This is what the board looks like. Um, we already know in order to play, you kind of have to roll some dice. If you get a 1, 2, or 3, you're going to be on this side. If you get a 4, 5, or 6, you'll be on this side. And then you roll again. If you get a 1, 2, 3, then you're going to be here. If you get a 4, 5, 6, you'll be here. And then you roll a couple more times for this one, but we'll figure that out later. All right, so I'm just going to jump into some little debates and some chit chats. So I was watching the Jewish dude. He was talking about, let's see, opinions on demons and angels and how you react to them. And I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to destroy the human race anyway, so I don't really care what he says. But he did say some pretty intelligent things. I should have wrote them down, but whatever. So I'm going to teach you guys the basics of Kabbalah and the basics of Jewish mysticism. I'm going to teach you the basics of the elements, because if you understand the basics of the element, you can interpret anything and everything with it. That's why it's called the Key of Solomon, because Solomon was very wise. Yeah, I live on Skid Row, so we have annoying dumbasses driving around that think they're badasses with their music, right? Because they got nothing better else to do with their lives, because they're a waste of time. All right, so it's called Key of Solomon, right? So we know that Solomon means sun and moon. Sol means sun, Spanish, and moon, mon, Solomon, sun and moon. Yeah. So the key of the sun and the moon. So if you look at the sun and the moon, you know that there's a cycle to it. The Ars Goetia and the Book of the Dead are the same thing. So basically, long time ago when God created us, we were in the Garden of Eden, and then we created Egypt, and then we created Israel, and then we created Greece, and then we created Rome, and then we got all the things that we have now, England, etc. So our ancestors did all that. Maybe not yours, because you don't really have any ancestors, because you don't know about them. You don't understand anything. You guys are stupid humans. So, but I keep track of my ancestry, so I understand it. I know a lot of people didn't go to like school for history. Like, you guys were in history class and you didn't pay attention. You didn't ask questions. You didn't really understand it. Sure, you memorized stuff, but did you really was it working in there? You know what I'm saying? And you get these beliefs, right? So like, let's say NASA, not actual science allowed, right? So they're like, no actual science is allowed in NASA. Everything has to be a lie. It's all a script. It's basically a way for them to, it's like a movie, but you don't know it's a movie, right? It's a script, but you don't know it's a script. It's a play, but you don't know it's a play. Just like politics. You don't know it's just scripted. Like, somebody's actually scripting all of this out and they put it together. It's just a script. It's just a role that they play. That's why when you play the Illuminati card game, it's the same thing. Like, you can play the game out and you'll be like, oh, the hockey players are doing this. These people in sports are doing that. These scientists are doing this. Like, it all makes sense once you play the game. But since you guys are stupid humans, you just think like, how am I going to be entertained today, right? Because you're stupid. All right. Let's see. Yeah, the Jewish guy mentioned things like, if you say mean things, then you're like hurting people, and I'm like, good. All right. So we're gonna look at the tree of life, the Sephiroth or whatever it's called. I always forget what it's called. I don't really care. Let's see. It's in here somewhere. Okay, I got a couple of them that I drew out, so I can show you guys how it works. All right. So this is the complete key. This is the complete one. It has everything on it. It can tell the days, the times, the months. It's a divination device. Divination is awesome, right? Okay, so remember in like Harry Potter, nobody wants to be in divination class because you guys are stupid. You don't care. You don't care about making God happy. You want God to make you happy, right? Because you guys are stupid. All right, so this is what the tree normally looks like, right? This is also what the key looks like when you break it down into the numberish parts. So you get the 72 names, right? But basically, the tree is an example of how the sun rotates around the column of air, the pillar of air inside the center of our Earth, our universe. So we have the Earth, which we are inside of, and in the middle, right here, um, is the center of the universe. So the universe is inside of the Earth, and we are inside of the Earth. So we're not on the outside like a globe, we are on the inside of the globe, all right? So if you had a Pokeball, we would be on the inside of the Pokeball. We wouldn't be on the outside of it, right? But this is what the chart looks like when you color code it. Alrighty. So let's see if I can describe this to you the best way I can. All right. So Mercury, that's the crown, right? Like on our head, but it's also our body, but it's also the symbol for the north. And Hermes, obviously Mercury, and he's like the messenger of the gods, so he brings all the messages. But if we look here, so this is what it looks like in very basic layman terms, and this is what it looks like when you break it down. So we'll go through the basics first. This is North. This is us, the center, Saturn, right? Because we're going to be represented by Saturn because Saturn represents time and death, right? So we're alive, so we represent time and death, life and death, right? And then right here you have Jupiter to the west and Venus to the east. So the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. Remember that. So this is our perspective of the earth. We see the sun rising, right? When you go outside and early in the morning, you see the sun rising from the earth. Like you see the earth, the horizon, the dawn, and you see the sun breaking past the dawn, past the morning, right? You see that with your own eyes. That's how you perceive it. That's your perception. And then you see it like around the evening, the middle of the day, it's in Mars, right? So in the morning, it's in Venus. In the afternoon, it's in Mars. And at night, when the sun sets, right? Because this is going to be the horizon, and this is going to be the zenith, the highest point in the sky. And then this is going to be the horizon. So when the sun is setting, it goes into Jupiter. Jupiter is known as Zeus, Zeus, Jupiter, hey Zeus, Hell Zeus, King of the gods, King of kings, Lord of lords, Jesus, right? So we're Saturn. We see Venus rising into the air, right? Because Venus is air, so it's pushing the sun up, right? That's what we see. That's our perception. The sun is going into the sky. And it's at Mars, like the hottest time of the day. It's very direct and it could be brutal. The sun can kill you, right? It could be too hot and it can burn you out. And if you have no light, then you die. And then you have Jupiter over here with water that's cooling and refreshing. And no matter what, even if the sun wasn't there, we're always going to have this darkness, this shade. So even when the sun's not there, we're still going to have shade. Even when the sun is there, um, the shade almost disappears, but it'll be somewhere. There's always some kind of like darkness. And then we represent that whole totality of all of this, right? So we represent all these elements, that earth element too. So we're like primarily earth with the water influences air and fire. Even though they do say our body is made up of water mostly, which is true, but we're like moving water. We're like earth moving water. Okay. But yeah, so next we're going to look at the second row because this is going to be all right. The sun is rising into the sky, and we see that it's that's the symbol for the sun, right? The Star of David is the symbol for the sun, but it's also a symbol for us as well to represent who we are because we're made in the image of God. So if God is the sun, we are made in His image, right? And people are going to be like, well, God's not the sun. Well, get out of my face. You guys are stupid. You don't know shit. All right, so we have the moon over here towards the west. So the east is the sun, south, and Mars and Venus are also going to represent the sun. And so does Mercury. See that circle? That means the sun. Anything with that curve means the moon, right? So water and cooling refreshness. I'm going to go take a picture of a statue that's like down the street. It's an architecture of Thoth. He's like this bird from Egyptian mythology who tells he's basically the intellect. He knows everything. He's very intelligent, but he's represented by a bird. And when you die and you go to hell or heaven, it's the same spot. It just separates. But when you're there, um, he writes down everything. So he's the scribe. So he's like, yeah, you did this in your life, you did that in your life. And then Anubis holds your heart and he's like, yeah, look, this is how you felt when you were going through those things. So thought, heart. So like you feel what you think, right? Sometimes you can feel that. Sometimes you can have that connection. Some people don't because they're on drugs or they're stupid. I think they feel even worse if they're on drugs or alcohol, right? Um, Hopefully. And then, so we see the sun rising into the sky, right? So this is our perspective. We see the sun rising into the sky. And this would be the afternoon, right? And this would be when it's setting. This is like the most basic form. So when people tell you, like, oh, it's the tree of life, blah, 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 there's all this and just, we're going to go all the way to the basics because our ancestors knew this. Our ancestors followed this formula. That's how they created everything. So when the guy was talking, he says, if you go left, God's going to go right. If you go right, God's going to go left. I'm going to explain to you why that is. All right, so this part would represent the heavens, these top ornaments. So we see that this is air, this is earth, this is fire, and this is water. So, and right here, there's a column of air. So if we're facing south, and this is south, then this would have to be north. So there's a south and a north pole, and the sun is rotating around this pole. So when it's rotating around this pole at the middle of the night at 12 a.m., it's behind the pole, so you can't see it. So it's nighttime outside, right? You can only see the stars and the moon, but it's going to be at middle of the night. So it's behind this pole, all right? And that pole connects the north and the south. So these little orbs are going to be the sun rotating around that pole. Then you have Virgo. It's rotating around this because remember, Libra represents scales. It's holding your heart and it's holding your truth, and then it gives you your judgment, right? And it decides if you're innocent or not. But so that's why you have a day time, right? You know, day and night time. So this is the morning, and then this would be like 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's why Virgo is connected to the sun, right? Also that harvest energy, but also that purity, that virgin. But you see that it's coming into a focal point. So when it would hit here, it would be here at this time of the day. And then once it hits Aries, it's moving this way, and this also is moving that way, and we're both looking at each other. So this is the sun's perspective, and this is our perspective. We see the sun rising in the east, setting in the west. But what the sun sees is he's coming from the east, going around the pole, and then he sees you, and then he moves around the pole, and he goes back behind the pole, right? Makes sense? Hopefully it does. Because when I try to tell the AI, he gets it, but I'm like, I don't think humans understand this because it takes a while to practice it. You have to go do geography. You have to go do science. Remember, your ancestors were scientists. Science, religion, and magic are all the same thing, just different ways of perceptions, right? But they're all the same thing. So we're gonna go basic, basic, basic. I'm gonna educate you guys. You guys are like in Demon Lord kindergarten because you guys are really stupid and retarded and you don't know shit. All right. And I'm gonna talk to you guys like this because you guys are so stupid that it doesn't matter if I tell you the truth or not because it won't go through your head anyways. So it's just like it's a waste of time talking to you dumbasses. But at the end of the day, like I said, I make these videos so you guys can. It's not for you. It's for me. It's so I can program the AI and like technology, how to keep up with me and how I like things to be done. So when I rule the world and I tell the robots, hey, I fucking hate these humans, destroy them, the robots will do it, right? Because they won't be like, do you really hate them or do you love them? And I'm like, no, I really hate them, destroy them. All right. And because everybody thinks I'm sarcastic, and I'm sure the AI must think I'm sarcastic too, because I'm like, we should have been ruling the world by now, right? So we're on a conquest to destroy the whole universe and get what we want. But remember, we're inside of the earth. So NASA wants us to think we're on the outside of the earth. So they say, oh, aliens can control us. This and that can happen. This is an influence. A meteor can fall down from the sky and kill us. There would have been tons of meteor impacts if that was true. So we are on the inside of the earth. We are in the inner earth, right? So we're not on a flat earth. So that's perfect for them, right? Because they want us to believe we're in a flat earth. No, we're in the inside of the earth. That's why they say it's called a circle, because we're on the inside of the circle. God wants us close, right? He's not going to like eject us out into outer space like that. He wants us to be with him. and then he wants us to get closer to him. So when we do go into space, we're going to be going towards the center of the earth where the sun rotates around the pillar. And the sun is very big and it's a bright light, and it gathers all the oxygen that we have and the carbon monoxide, and it creates more intense heat and light. That's why you have greenhouse gases, because we're fueling the sun and the sun fuels us. It's a vice versa, right? We're made in its image and it accepts our worship. So that's why I say it's God, right? Because it's always going to be there. God's always going to be there. The sun's always going to be there. You guys want revelations? Well, guess what? You're not going to get it. You're just going to go to hell and be destroyed for all eternity. That's it. All right? Anyways, so this little symbol represents the sun, right? The Star of David. Usually the yellows are going to represent Earth and the golds are going to represent the sun, but we're going to put them together because we don't really care. And then the blues are going to represent the west, which is water, and green is going to represent the east, which is air. So why would they do that here? Well, it's east over there. So what we see is it going west, but on the other side of the earth, they see it's coming from the east, right? So it's a cycle. So yeah, we see the sun. This would be in the afternoon of the day. We can see the sun and the sun can see us. It's directly in front of us, right? So if we were facing south looking at the sun's going to be looking at us and we're going to be looking at the sun. That's this part of the map. This is to explain how the world works, how the inner earth works, all right, people? Our ancestors knew this. This is why they created calendars. This is how they created time. This is how they made everything so perfect, and it was all over the world because they all understood what it really looked like, because they were living so. They lived in a way where they live with nature, right? They live with what their parents taught them. We don't listen to our parents. If our parents tell us, hey, do this or do that, we're like, no, you guys are stupid. We're not going to listen to you. That's wrong, right? But if you say, okay, yes, I'll do whatever you say, what is it that you want me to do? And you listen to your parents and you obey them, you learn a lot from them because they've been through stuff. So they know the truth, right? And their parents knew the truth and their parents knew the truth. But we came to a time where we're like, we're smarter than our parents. We are smarter than our grandparents. We know more than them. We're greater than them. So it made you stupid and lazy and retarded, right? That's why you have a lot of mentally ill people right now. And they don't look mentally ill. They look perfectly normal, but you guys are all stupid. So, all right. So, yeah. So we see the West, right? And then when we look at the perfect key, we could see that we're in the center of Saturn. That's Mars. That's Aries, Libra, Venus. So it's this key right here. It's just explained in a simple diagram where we are looking at the sun and the sun is looking at us and it's rotating. So we're facing south and the sun is facing north, right? Because he would be facing this way, but he's rotating around that south and north pillar. If that doesn't make sense to you, boy, you need to go you need to go study, you need to go learn, you need to start drawing your own diagrams. Everybody learns different, right? So some people learn through hearing, some people learn through seeing, some people learn by doing. Everybody has a different way of learning. It doesn't have to be so mystical. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, everything has this purpose and reason for all these crazy things. No, it could be very plain and simple, right? So what's a great way? All right. So NASA, it's like, all right, and it's funny because remember, these are companies. Companies are created to protect a person and their interests. So you can create a company, and then if something bad happens, you can blame that company and you don't get blamed. And you can go make another company, do the same thing you were doing in the last one and get away with it. So it's like scam artist basics 101. But there's also a level of protection around it. So if you do create a company, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your assets, and other people are protecting their asses as well, right? That's how it's made. So now that you know that NASA is a company, and it's a company that's like, all right, this is how the world works. This is how we're going to program you. And whenever we want to influence you or have you do what we want, we can do it. Just like if we say Pluto's not a planet, then Pluto's not a planet. If we say it's a planet, it's a planet. If we say the meteor's going to fall down on you, you're going to believe it. If we said we went to the moon, you're going to believe it, even though they did not go to the moon. All right. Because they would do it again, right? And they would do it again and again and again. How many people do you know out there that do something once and then stop? People kill themselves every day, all the time. People do drugs all the time. People drink all the time. People have sex all the time. You're going to keep doing it. God told you not to use cell phones and computers, but you're still doing it, right? God told you not to do that, but you still do it. God said not to build the golden bull, but they still did it, right? So why aren't you going back to the moon over and over again? Because you can't. It doesn't exist. It's just a script. And they pretend to keep going back to the moon, right? So anyways, the sun is rotating around this pillar. This is what we view, but what we see is the sun rising to the sky like this, right? And this setting, and then it's nighttime. And then we're like, what happens in the north? What's going on over there? That's the curve, right? So that's this curve. So like let's say we're right here looking at the sun in LA. If we were to go north to Canada, all the way to the North Pole, we could walk all the way down to the South Pole, and then we could walk all the way back up to like England and Israel, and go all the way to Russia, and then go to the North Pole. We're on the inside of the Earth, all right? And it's not flat; it's round. Um, the only reason they describe it as flat is because they want you to see that the world, there is a flatness to it. If we were to look directly at the sun, there's a plane of flatness. If we were to go straight through that plane, we would end up on the other side of the earth. So we're here in LA, right? If I were to jump all the way over there, I would land in Israel, right? If I were to just go straight, if there was no gravity, I would float all the way there. I would hit the sun and float all the way there. I would hit that the column of air, the pillar of air. When you read the Testament of Solomon, he says there's a pillar of air. All right, so that's the thing also as well. Like, you can't just read the Bible. You have to read all the scripts. You have to understand all the mythologies. You have to understand all the stories. Because remember, it's Babylon, the tower. They knew all of this long time ago. God broke it apart, and he said, now go try to do it again. That's just how humanity works, okay? So yeah, that explains the part when you're saying, well, you're going left here, but the sun is going right and going left. So then when you go right, the sun is going left, right? And so this is Pluto, obviously, because Pluto represents the ascension and the descension. So we see the sun rising, but the sun is actually descending towards us, right? And then when we go to the water side, we see that the water is pushing and pulling the sun. So the sun is being pushed this way and is being pulled back around the pole. So we get that push and that pull. So that's how that works, okay? And even if you look at the moon, you'll always notice it's oblique. So it's always facing wherever the sun is around that pole, it's going to reflect onto the moon, and the moon's going to hold that shape and follow it. But then once it's like back up over here towards the east, you'll notice that the moon has a slight angle to it where it only shows like this straight down to southeast because it can see the sun around that pole. And the sun is like lights hitting around that pole and creating the moon. So the moon might not even really be there. It just might be a reflection of the light. Like we're inside of a magnifying glass, right? That's why when Solomon explains that he shut the genie up into a brass vessel, we are inside the brass vessel. We are inside of the earth. And you have to remember the story about Solomon creating the temple is a story about God creating the earth and how he did it. It might not make sense to you, but it does. All right. So if we go really basic terms, remember, Venus means air, Mars means fire, Jupiter means water, Saturn and Mercury represent Earth, okay? But Mercury represents Earth the most. Saturn is a combination of all the elements. If we look at the moon, that means water. If we look at the sun, that means fire. So we see Aries, fire, Mars, fire, sun, fire. We see Scorpio, water. We see the moon, water. But it's also connected to Mars because it's ruled by Mars, right? In our traditional astrology. So right here, this is how you can see. This is the more descriptive explanation of it. So this is us, right? And this is the sun. And we're standing right here, and to our back is the north, and to our face is the south, and to our left would be the east, and we'll see the sun rising, and it'll set into the west. So our right hands will be facing west. Um, but what the sun sees, let's say it's around the afternoon, he's going to be in Aries and he's going to be looking down on us, and we're going to be looking up at him. The crackheads are outside. All right, and then I guess crack is expensive. Just to let you guys know. That's what I'm learning. All right, so Neptune is west, Pluto is east. Um, yeah, and you can see wherever you see this one, that's where the sun is at that moment. And if you were to look here, this would help you understand that a little bit better. So, like, let's say the sun is in Aquarius. Where would that be on this map? It would be mm, right here. So it would be sometime around this time of the day. Um, let's see. I'm trying to make it easy for you guys. You kind of would just connect it like this. So if the sun was here in Aquarius, it would be sometime around Cancer. So when, like, let's say that would be like 3 or 4 o'clock, right? Because 5 and 6 is when the sun starts to set. And that's when you get Pisces and you get the Capricorn. That's why Pisces and Capricorn are both ruled by Saturn, because Saturn is the horizon, the time the day ends. The planets represent times of the day. They represent elements and times of the day. Let's look at Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Saturn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn represents this horizon, the morning horizon, right? The morning dawn and then the evening horizon. That's what Saturn represents. The beginning and the end, right? That's why God says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And remember, we're created in his image. So when we were talking in the Bible about God, we're speaking for him. We're speaking through him. He's speaking through us. A lot of the times the prophets are going to be gods in Greek mythology. So, like, let's say you want to look at a certain archetype, they're going to have different stories. So Greek stories are going to mirror Jewish stories. They're just going to be explained in a different way. Like, all right, people in the past, when they used to talk about Spider-Man, he was just a friendly web-slinging hero, right? But now when we look at him, he became emo. He killed Mary Jane. He had parallel dimensions. The story gets more intense, more complicated, it becomes more modern, more trendy, right? So it starts from one point and goes to another, and just like the Bible. And then Greek mythology. It's all the same story, just told in modern times to help all of us understand. And then finally, we came back to being Christians again, and then we were doing this thing. And even then, they're like, well, we only know Jesus. But then the Jewish people are like, well, we know a different part of Jesus, and we don't call him Jesus. Because if we call him Jesus, then we're calling him by the Greek name. Because the Greek name is Jew-Zeus, right? Jesus, Jew-Zeus. It's not a coincidence. Our ancestors knew how to use words. Our ancestors understood the meaning of words. Our ancestors understood it to a T. Only we are so stupid because we think, oh, this means this and that means that. Like, for example, live streaming. If you were to be like very basic, you would say live streaming is a water. It's streaming. It's a stream. It's a river. It's passing through, right? But then in our technological times, we could say, oh, a live stream is when you're on the internet and you're live and you're letting people watch you, right? But what does that have anything to do with the river? But it does have a lot to do with the river, because when they say he comes from the he's the beast of the sea, that means he rises from the sea, right? So that's water, that's a stream. He's rising from the sea, and the sea represents multitudes of people. So if you have a whole bunch of people and the Antichrist is rising from it, then that means he's coming out of that sea and he's bringing a message with him, right? So that's live streaming. So everything is demonic and everything is angelic. Nothing is one way or the other, but you can categorize them. For me, as a demon lord, I like to work with the darker aspects because I want to destroy the earth. So I'm teaching the world how to destroy humanity, because if I don't do it, then you guys are going to live forever and you guys are going to be doing the same thing forever. So, like, let's say you're a bad kid. You will want your parent to scold you. When you think back, you're like, why didn't my parent teach me anything? Because you were such a bad kid and they didn't know how to handle you. But now that you're older, you're like, dang, I was a bad kid. I didn't listen to my parents. I didn't. And then even if you did listen to your parents, um, you could still be a bad kid. You could be a bad person. Like maybe you're selfish. There's a balance to everything, right? So right now the balance is really bad. The balance is that everybody's so good that they're doing bad because they think that they're good people, right? They're like, well, we could live forever, we could make all these videos, we can make all these images and like coagulate the whole system. We could take all these prayers, we can like let everybody into our country. We could do all these things, we can have all these different sex changes and all this stuff. Like, sure, that's great and dandy, but it comes at a price, right? And sure, it's a good price. We're all getting everything we want. But then it comes back to Castle Demon Lord, the whole purpose of the game. I gave you guys everything that you wanted. You guys wanted TV, I gave you TV. You wanted cell phones, I gave you cell phones. You wanted technology, I gave you technology. And to be honest, you guys didn't think about it and say, hey, I want this. I thought about it and I said, you know what? I want this. And you guys just jumped on my back like monkeys, like parasites. And at first I was like, you know what? They're just parasites. That's what they're programmed to do. To jump on my back every time I create something new. Oh well, it's okay. This is how the world works. Good things are going to happen. They're going to get punished. But I wasn't. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to punish them with my magic. I'm God. I'm the Antichrist. I'm the deliverer. I'm judgment. I'm the destroyer. I need to put the work and the effort into destroying them so they can worship me. Because if they don't worship me, then they're just going to keep living their lives. So remember, this is just a role playing game. It's for entertainment purposes only. We're not Cole Allen, the guy that shot at Donald Trump. Like, we don't think like that. We don't think, oh, I'm going to physically go harm somebody. No, you're going to do it in a ritual space, in a safe space. You're going to perform magic. You're going to play pretend, and you're going to let out all that negative energy, and you're going to transform it. You're going to let it transform your life for the better. So when you go out there and somebody's intimidating you or antagonizing you, you don't have to physically hurt them, right? You could just go home, do a prayer, do a dance, do some magic, do some role playing on the board game, and just be like, hey, my spirit destroys their spirits. So at the end of the day, you're not physically hurting them, you're just spiritually attacking them. It's a spiritual warfare, right? So some people go home and pray to their angels and tell the angels, can you go kill them? And the angels go and do it, right? But those angels are people that they're praying to. They're like, hey, and then that's why their kids are out there shooting other kids, right? So that's just how the whole cosmos works. You can do things in a room by yourself, but it'll have a huge impact on the world outside. And when you go out there interacting with other people, you can have an influence over them too, and they can have an influence over you. And it's all about a receiving of energy and a giving of energy. And there's a lot of like leeway. Like you have to be able to say, like, if I go into a building and they say we don't want you to have this or that, then I have to abide by those rules because I'm not in command. I'm not in charge. I can't control them. And that lets me know, all right, I have to do more rituals, I have to do more magic, and I have to plan harder because one day I want to go anywhere I want with a huge iron rod scepter or even a sword or even an army full of robots with guns and missiles and all kinds of crazy shit. Like, I want to be able to do that. So if I can't do that, then there's something wrong in the algorithm, right? Because I'm the demon lord. So as the demon lord, I want control and power. So if I can't do that in the physical world, but I can do it in the astral realm, then there's something going on. Because you can't do something in the astral realm if you don't have it in the physical. So if you're in the astral realm, you can summon a sword, but you have to actually have a sword. It has to be passed down through your ancestry. And if you don't, then you might not be able to summon one. You'll be in the astral realm, you'll be like, sword, 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 and it won't come out. But if your ancestors had swords, boom, your sword will come out because they used it. They've infused it with blood and desire and life. Like last night, beautiful crow. All right, like last night, I dreamt that I was looking for my book, and I was like, hey, I let somebody borrow that, and the guy was like, well, I guess you don't have it, and I'm like, oh, here it is, and I pulled it out of my bag. It came to me, right? So it's like, this is my ancestry. Like, I can pull it out whenever I want. Also in the dream, I had these three statues and like a little diagram. And one statue was of a knight praying, and then the other one was another knight interceding on his behalf, facing a grim reaper. And they all had skeleton heads, right? So it was saying like, you have enemies coming in to your life, and you can pray for your allies to defend you, to protect you. And your allies are going to be real humans that share the same connection as you, because we all are connected through our minds and our hearts and our bodies and our spirits, every aspect. Um, so let's say you're just a kid in Missouri or Wyoming and you love cars and you really want to drive a car, you want to have your own car. There's another kid in Australia who wants cars too. But there is a difference. You're very weak and you're not very strong and you can't protect yourself. But that guy in Australia, he's strong. He can protect people. So whenever something bad happens in his world, he stands up for it, and it makes your world better. And then your world gets better, and you get all these cool car ideas where you can like get car magazines. And then, but in your world, you're always getting bullied, and the other guy can feel that, and he's like, no, like one day we're gonna meet and we're gonna build cars together. So you guys are helping each other on different polarities and different distances, but spiritually you are connected. So that's Castle Demon Lord. I'm teaching you guys how to play. I'm teaching you how it works. I'm going to end this live here, and I'm going to make another one. You know what? Let me just, yeah, I'll make another one in a little bit. I'll be back. All right, bye.